You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. We're going to let this breathe for just a second, make sure that we have green check marks across all platforms. Looks like we're good to go. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, joining you back from my week off, and joining me, as always, is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend. He is Erick Trickel. Erick, like I said, been off for a week. Long time since we actually got to sit down and chat. What's going on in the world of Erick Trickel? How you doing, man?
Everything's going good for me, but right now people don't care about me, Lance. They care about you. How's it going? You joining us in the father world. How's everything going for you?
You know, it's actually going pretty well. Caven is doing great. Mom's doing great. They're both upstairs right now. All he does is eats and sleeps, which is okay. He's sleeping through the night for about 4 hours at a time. So it's actually kind of nice. You know, we got a pretty good baby. He's cute as a button, and he looks a lot like me. He's got his mom's nose, but everything is going very well. We've got a doctor's appointment here to make sure everything's going good. He just had a blood sugar test the other day. But as far as he is concerned, everything is going great. So I'm excited to have him. I was excited to, get to meet him. It sucks that I had to miss the show last week, but we got the chance to come home on Friday last week, and I wanted to make sure that everything was set up perfect for him, perfect for her, having surgery and everything like that. Kind of a difficult situation for her to move around, and just make her as comfortable as I possibly can and be there for her is the biggest thing. So I see everybody going off in the chat. Congratulations, Lance. Peter joining in. Terry, what's going on? Matthew Olivo. Again, thank you all for the overwhelming support for me and my family. It's been a lot of fun over this last weekend. And actually, you know what? I am going to go on paternity leave starting today, actually. I got off work today, and I'm off for the next 9 days. So I get to kind of hang out with him and get to know him a little bit. So more pictures to come. Follow me, guys, on Twitter at Sanderson MHH, and you'll get everything there. But you know what? While we're at it, might as well just get all of the matters of business out of the way first and foremost. Again, guys, make sure you guys are following me at Sanderson MHH on Twitter, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in Erick. Also, guys, while you're at it, follow at DVDD_pod. That's the podcast account. It's the easiest way to stay plugged into what we've got going on the show. We just kind of update on what we've got going up on Fridays. So if you guys are following that, you'll be able to find the links to everything and all the shows and stuff. Also, follow at Mile High Huddle. It's the easiest way to keep in touch with what's going on at milehighhuddle.com. You get instant news and analysis, film breakdowns, opinion articles, stuff like that at milehighhuddle.com. If you guys are in a position to financially, please head on over to huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. Get your merch. Hit the merch booth. Get a hat. Get yourself a T-shirt. There's something for a little bit of something for everybody. And in fact, I actually have a new design coming out for you guys. Got a new long sleeve shirt for everybody, Dove Valley Deep Divers. So here in the next few days, make sure you guys keep your eyes peeled on huddleuppod.com. Get yourself a new shirt. And if you guys aren't in a position financially to be able to do so, the 3 easiest ways to help support the show: subscribe wherever you're watching, specifically on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere that you guys are get your podcast. Subscribe, like every video you guys see on YouTube, and if you love it, share it. Share it to everybody out there in Broncos country, and that's simply the easiest way to help this show grow. And we're growing exponentially every single day. It's a lot of fun to be able to watch and see this following grow. Now today, guys, got a really fun show for you guys lined out. We're going to do some scouting terminology, but first, Erick, Justin Simmons yesterday stepped up to the podium after practice and had some very interesting things to say. In fact, he opened up his press conference with an opening statement saying, quote, "I just want to start off with a statement. I wanted to say first, I appreciate everyone this offseason that just was working with me through everything in terms of being under the tag and just dealing with extensions and stuff like that. Obviously, on my end, I could have done a better job communicating. It's just the first time going through it. Just trying to understand what's going on and learning and trying to figure out what would be best for my family. I just want to say I appreciate everyone with just the patience and the growth that I've had during that time and continually growing. I just want to first come off, and I appreciate you guys for that and just bearing with me through some of those things." We'll close that quote there. Now, to me, it sounds like, Justin Simmons is kind of not necessarily angry at the situation. He understands what's going on, and it's a very difficult situation right now with what's going on in the world. The CV is really kind of affecting everything, and the biggest thing that I can take away from that is just him opening up and communicating more with the Denver Broncos and trying to open up more lines of communication. Now, Eric, what have you heard as far as anything as that goes with Justin Simmons and the Broncos trying to get a long-term contract extension nailed down?
All right, before I get to that, Lance, I just got to say, man, again, congratulations and everything. I'm sure that is a day that you will never forget. I know I won't, though, not for the same reasons. I'm not going to get into everything that happened when my daughter was born, but I'm super happy that everything went smoothly for you and that mama and son came out perfectly healthy and doing great, man. Seriously, super happy for you, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then as for what you asked about it, basically what it was there were some issues from what I've been able to pick up and what from conversations I've had and everything, is that there were some issues with the contract negotiations dealing with guaranteed money. And we've kind of seen why the Broncos were kind of hesitant to go and give Justin Simmons exactly the kind of guaranteed money he wanted. With everything that's going on and the salary cap going to go down next year, they just didn't want to invest a lot of money just in case he had a down year or something like that. Maybe decided to part ways. Just like that, they wanted to be careful with it. Now that they have some idea of where they're at and what's going to be happening over the next couple of years with the salary cap, they have a better idea of how to go and structure this and give more of that guaranteed money that Justin Simmons wants going forward over these next few years. So that's what a big part of it was. I mean, it sucks, and I know a lot of fans were pissed off about it. I know I was. I wanted the deal done, and things seemed very promising for it. And then teams had to leave their basically the comfort of their home the comfort of their home away from home and go to their home, basically not being able to be at the facilities and stuff like that. Then everything of this still being around, games getting canceled, preseason's done, no preseason, stuff like that. Salary cap going down. It's just there's a lot of reasons as to why the Broncos just weren't willing to do that. They gave him a deal that would have made him a top 5 paid safety. He wanted a little bit more, and he wanted a little bit more guaranteed. Basically, from my understanding, what the Broncos offer was this year was exactly what he got on the tag. Next year, he got a little bit of guaranteed money, and then after that, there was no more guaranteed money. From what I understood of their offer, if I understood correctly, that's basically what it was. And so I have no faults with Simmons turning it down. Like, he fully deserves to have more security from the Broncos than that. But, I mean, it's one of those things. Again, I understand both sides of it. I'm bummed it didn't get down. I fully expect this not to be done between the Broncos and Simmons. I think that next year, after the season, bam, he's hit with a tag again. Bam, they have more time to work out a new extension. And then after that, hopefully by this time, the situation in the world's done. And they'll have an idea of what's going on with the cap and everything like that. So they'll be able to just really sit down and hammer out a deal.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is just with what's going on with the world. And now, I mean, looking at what we've got going, especially with what happened on Monday with Juwan James opting out of the year, that freed up, $13 million in cap space. And the Broncos, as they sit right now, this is per Field Yates of ESPN. He said, he released this earlier today, official cap space post all of the opt-outs, the numbers 1 through 11. Denver sits at number 4 in the NFL in the most cap space after all of the opt-outs and $29.5 million in cap space. There's a lot of room for the Broncos to actually get something done, but they're really going to want to push a lot of that forward because they do have, again, like you said, the salary cap is going to drop next year potentially. I think it's set right now at $175 million. So there's some at least some financial planning that the Broncos can do there. But they also have to, understand that Juwan James's cap hit still comes back around in 2021. Yeah. So now, I mean, just because it's not here right now, did I break up really bad?
All right, you just froze up really bad there.
Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, so the Broncos with $29 million in cap space, they have they still have to worry about Juwan James coming back next year. So that $13 million, it doesn't necessarily mean much right now. especially with the salary cap dropping next year, they're going to want to roll that money over. And hopefully a little bit of chunk of that they have with also the Jeff Hireman cut can help get Justin Simmons a deal done. It's a very fluid situation right now. And obviously there is a little bit of disappointment, and maybe not so much on Justin Simmons' side. They actually asked him about that, if there was a level of disappointment because he did not reach a long-term deal. And he said, quote, I wouldn't say disappointment, but I would obviously say you are hoping for a long-term deal. In the grand scheme of things and everything going on, this is a first for everyone. You've got the pandemic that's going on and all these different things. Unfortunately, it just wasn't able to work out on both sides. Moving forward, I think I've always been a guy my whole career that's just been confident in myself and what I can do, close quote. So if Justin Simmons can continue to play on this this meteoric ascension into like the top 5, potentially top 3 safety in the NFL, the Broncos are going to get a long-term extension done with him. They're going to figure out a way to get it done. Whether that means moving on from AJ Bouye or Jarrell Casey next year, we don't know yet. But Justin Simmons seems to be in the long-term plans for this Broncos franchise.
Yeah, and another issue with this Justin Simmons deal, and this may be hard for fans to hear, cap space isn't everything.
Yeah.
An addition to that, teams need to have the cash on hand to pay them. And unfortunately for the Broncos, with the owner situation in flux, they don't have that.
Yep.
Their cash flow is a little bit rocky at the moment because they don't have a set owner in place to help put money in it and control that aspect of stuff. And that's one reason why they need to get this hammered out sooner rather than later. And honestly, it may be best for them to go around to selling the team and settling that, because honestly, that may be the best situation, because who knows how long this lawsuit between whichever bull and daughter it is in this lawsuit that's going on about the ownership, who knows how long that's going to go on. It's already been postponed until next spring because they decided that they can't do it in person, or they can't do it over the phone. So it's just a major issue here that they've got to get figured out. And this is going to affect the Broncos for a few years. Even after if they sell the team, even after that, it'll be a couple years before they get this cash flow back in. And this cash flow, having that, is one reason why the Chiefs were able to manipulate the cap so much. I mean, the cap space, yes, you got to follow it, but it's so easy to work around. And you hear that a lot, but it's easy to work around when you have the cash on hand. Because the cash on hand is what you do for bonuses, signing bonuses, all that stuff like that. It's what you're able to put into escrow. Is that the right term?
I think so.
I don't know that kind of stuff about that. They have to put the guaranteed money into escrow and everything for future years and all this. And the Broncos just don't have that cash on hand. They've been really hurt, obviously, as I said, and they're just trying to figure out ways around that. It's why some of the deals we're seeing have been structured the way we have been seeing. And so that's just another aspect that we've got to they've got to figure out with Justin Simmons going forward. I saw somebody in there asking about if a down year, if he wouldn't want to play. And I can say this, I've had conversations to multiple people about this, is Justin Simmons, he wants to stay in Denver. He wants to be in Denver for the rest of his career. That's where he wants to be. He's got no issues. He has no ill will towards the Broncos. He understands the reasons why the Broncos weren't able to make a deal. He understands that business side of things. So he's not hurt by it. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's not insulted by it. I mean, obviously he's going to be hurt a little bit. I mean, talking about a huge deal here that he's getting in, they weren't able to get a deal done. So that does cause a little bit of hurt there. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I think everything will get figured out in over next year. But yeah. And yeah, he's being as Dylan Von Ark says, he says, I think he's being very mature about being tagged. I think he has every right to be frustrated, but he's taking it like a champ. That's the kind of leader we need. And that's exactly it. There is frustration there. There is some hurt, but he's being mature. He understands the business side of it. And that's all we can ask for. I mean, Justin Simmons has really shown those leadership qualities that you really want. And I just want to see it transition more onto the field, which, going a little bit off topic here, is because we see it off the field so much with everything that he's done, everything that he's doing. Just see it on the field, help him see, have him start holding other players accountable for when they make mistakes too, holding himself accountable, stuff like that. Just taking that next step forward on the field, because off the field, I mean, there's no issues.
Yeah, Dylan coming back in here with a super chat, just showing some love. Hashtag DVDD. Dylan, hey, thanks for joining us. You know what? Let's go back to the chat stream just a little bit and say what's up to everybody joining us on this lovely Happy Hour Friday. Eclipse, what's going on, man? Duke joining us as well. Terry up north in Canada. Darian
California.
California, that's right. Miller 707 in here. Robert Caslow. I know Peter Middleton from Turkey is in here. 3 a.m. in the morning, coming in to talk some football, talk some scouting stuff as well. Now, this was the meat and potatoes of our episode for today. We really wanted to kind of break down some stuff for you guys last week, but with me not being able to join the show, we're going to actually do it this week. And Eric, you obviously, with being the senior NFL draft analyst, have heard a lot of crazy and wacky terms. I'm sure most of you guys have probably heard some of this stuff before, but scouting terminology, it's different. It's almost its own kind of a language. And I know a lot of this stuff, but you know what, guys, we're going to break it down for you. And when you hear something crazy, Eric, I know you've got a list driven up for us. And I mean, you're talking about, what does click and close mean? What is looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane? What is the definition of arm talent? Like, that's a fuzzy definition. So Eric, go ahead and pull your list up, and let's just start off with that question in and of itself. What is the true definition of arm talent in your opinion?
So real quick, the one thing about this is why I like covering this is because we get to give our thoughts on it. Because this is one thing that I noticed, and it was a couple weeks ago, somebody made a comment about what does arm talent mean? And I was reading the replies to this on Twitter, and I realized that so many people have a different opinion as to what that means. So, I mean, what this means to us, it may not mean differently. And talking to all the scouts that I've talked to and everything over the years is I've realized that they have this terminology too. And what it means to person A, it means something different to person B. So here's our thoughts on it. And let me get this pulled up real quick. All right, so we have it pulled up here, and obviously we have it kind of sorted out a little loosely by position. Obviously, some of these can apply to multiple positions at once. But we're going to start off with arm talent. And for me, it's just basically a little bit of everything. Can they make every throw? Can they throw with velocity? Can they throw off of multiple platforms? Can they throw with good ball placement, which is accuracy? And real quick, a completion percentage does not mean a quarterback is accurate whatsoever. But it just encapsulates everything that goes with the arm and the quarterback's ability. Like Paxton Lynch, I saw a lot of people saying that he had tremendous arm talent. Well, no, he had a strong arm, which, as you can see, is the next thing. A strong arm is just being able to throw with velocity and throw those deep balls. Doesn't mean he can throw every single spot on the field. Doesn't mean he can throw off of multiple platforms, which Paxton Lynch couldn't do. He had a strong arm, but he didn't have the arm talent. Drew Lock, he has a strong arm, and he has the arm talent. He just has to put all the pieces to the puzzle, which is another term we'll get to, together for him to really take that next step forward as a quarterback. And so it just is a little bit of everything when you come to arm talent. Not the cerebral stuff, the reading the plays and everything. It's just the natural ability with the arm, what they can and can't do. Natural arm talent, it just comes naturally to them, being able to do all this stuff. If they're unnatural as an aspect, obviously, in one aspect of it, obviously it's not natural arm talent. But yeah, that's basically, for me, that's what it is. The ability to do just about everything that a quarterback's asked to do with their arm.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Obviously, the easy example of true and, God-given natural arm talent. Look at number 15 down in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. He's throwing off of crazy different angles and putting balls in places that you would not expect any other average person to be able to do. One thing that I always come back to with arm talent, and this is probably the biggest one, is it is a specific play, a specific route. We're talking the 15-yard out route or maybe even a 20-yard comeback route. Those two routes on the outside, if you're on the opposite side hash, so say you're on the left hash and you're throwing to the right side of the football field, okay, and you're throwing that 15-yard out route, can you put that ball right here in his hands, or like right head high, right on the outside shoulder, and make it so that the wide receiver can toe drag where only he can get his hands on the football? To be able to make that throw, you have to have arm talent, you have to have natural arm strength to be able to drive the football over the top of whatever underneath defender, to be able to get the velocity in there, to be able to beat the coverage defender in and of itself. You have the accuracy to put it in that one spot and the touch to be able to do so all at the exact same time. If you don't have natural arm talent, you cannot make that throw on a consistent basis. I mean, look at a guy like Derek Carr, a guy that I give a lot of credit to. He doesn't make that throw on a consistent basis. He never will. He doesn't have the natural raw arm talent to be able to do that. And that's a big thing. If you have natural raw arm talent, just more than arm strength. I mean, Josh Allen can make that throw up in Buffalo all day, but he's not going to make it on a consistent basis. He doesn't have that natural arm talent. He just has a very strong arm. Like, there's a big difference in arm talent versus arm strength.
So, Darian P actually has a different one because the next one is strong arm, which, as we said, it's just being able to throw with velocity and being able to throw the deep ball. I mean, typically when you see these guys, they struggle with touch, and that's consistently a big knock of theirs. And Darian P comes in and asks, any predictions for a stronger arm between Josh Allen and Mahomes? And quite frankly, I think Josh Allen has the stronger arm, but Patrick Mahomes has the far better arm talent.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, he can throw a hole through a battleship. His arm is just so consistently strong, but he struggles with touch, and we see that when watching the Bills. And he can throw it deep, but he sometimes struggles with those 15-yard outs, which on the far sideline, which can be such an issue for quarterbacks. So stronger arm is definitely Josh Allen's, but the better arm talent is Patrick Mahomes because he has a strong arm. By no means am I saying it's weak. And he has the talent to throw with proper touch and velocity and hitting all those throws and throwing off of so many different platforms.
Yeah.
Like it's just so insane.
One of my favorite ways to describe true natural raw arm talent, especially with Patrick Mahomes, is does he have a baseball arm? Have you ever watched a baseball game where like the shortstop has to throw off a crazy angle and has to be able to make that throw from shortstop to first base to make a guy out? If you can't make that throw off of like multiple different platforms, you don't have a good enough arm talent as a baseball player to be able to be a truly elite kind of a player. Patrick Mahomes has that kind of ability. He can throw across his body with touch, with accuracy, and also still with a little bit of velocity. I mean, we watched it, the no-look pass. Looking at what I can't remember who that was that they were playing, but the no-look pass where he throws across his body perfectly in the bucket on a 15-yard crossing route turned into a huge play. It's an amazing thing to watch when you have a guy that has true significant arm talent. Now, before we get to the next one, let's move this forward a little bit. We've kind of talked about strong arm as well. I want to go grab a couple of these super chats. Duke jumping in here with a super. Lance's #future sleep fund. Good luck with finding the Z's over the next 2 years, Lance. Hey, Duke, I appreciate you. It hasn't been too bad here lately, but we're only a week now. A week and actually 9 days, technically. There was another one here from Terry, coming up from up north in Canada, showing that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is, in fact, a #state of being. Terry says, just chipping in for #Lance's Diaper Fund. Hope everyone has a great weekend. #state of being. #Broncos World. The Diaper Fund is much needed right now. Let's just put it that way.
Diapers are expensive, man.
They are. It's crazy.
And babies go through them like ridiculously fast. Like we buy for Rosie, we buy the biggest box you can of it. I can't remember how many diapers are in it. And it's like almost $40 for one box of diapers, and we have to buy 2 a month. Like, holy cow.
It's crazy expensive to buy diapers. And fortunately, we did a good job. We did a good job, fortunately, over the last few months just to make sure that every time we went to the grocery store, throw a box of diapers on the top. So we've got at least a stockpile worth of some stuff and wipes and everything. So not to make this about talking babies and everything. This is a football podcast, but still, the Diaper Fund is much appreciated, man.
It's got to the point where I've started taking Rosie and telling her, like you got to stop. Like, start going in the potty.
I unfortunately have a couple of years before I can get to that. Now, last one here before we continue on with your with the next part of this. Chris Hernandez jumping in with a $10 super. Hey, Chris, thanks. We appreciate you for joining us. Actually, never mind. He says, I can't stay, but looking forward to hearing it later, guys. Cheers, MHH fans. #family movie night. There you go. Have fun, man. Click those little thumbs up. Absolutely, guys. The easiest way to help support the show is to subscribe, like, and share everything you guys see. So now let's get into the running back position. And this is actually
real quick. I gotta say, Jody Moncrief comes in and says, baby showers are great. And not to be a downer here. And I just gotta say, baby showers are great. if they're not coming after your brother was just mauled by a bear and your father-in-law was in the hospital. When we had the baby shower for my wife, for Rosie, it happened to be just after all of that happened. So like, just terrible timing, and it just kind of ruined the mood for it and everything. But baby showers are great. It's a good way to get a lot of stuff that you need for babies too.
Yeah, it is. We didn't have a baby shower, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so this first one here that I see you have written down, extra gear. This one is actually, it's a running back specific term, but you can use it a lot for wide receivers, especially playmakers on the outside. Extra gear, pretty well cut and dry. This is breakaway speed. When you hit through the hole and all of a sudden it's like you went from 5th to 6th gear. You have that extra gear to pull away from defenders and just and take the ball to the house. There's a lot of guys. People say Philip Lindsay has that extra gear. He really doesn't. He has that quick burst through the hole and then he maintains that same speed. Tyreek Hill has an extra gear. KJ Hamler has an extra gear. Those guys, they are literally able to take a 5-yard play and turn it into an explosive gain, a 70, 80-yard touchdown, because they have the ability to literally put it into high gear and outrun everybody. Like Again, it's not just necessarily running back specific, but that is one that you really look for in breakaway runners is do they have that extra gear? Are they long speed or are they short, quick burst and then maintain?
Yeah, and the best way to put this is I can't remember which player it was who had like a 22-mile-per-hour play last year, but he actually showed off that extra gear in that play. For a good portion of it, he's running about 20 miles per hour and everything like that, and then he gets into space and everything, and then boom, he hits that extra gear and he gets up to 22 miles per hour and just outruns everybody for a huge play. I think ended up being a touchdown. Might have been Tyreek Hill actually. Can't remember who for sure, but that's what an extra gear is. Just that ability to just run at a consistent speed and then just get faster and just take it to the house, pick up extra yards, whatever the case may be, depending on the angles made by defensive backs. But that's all that is. And then the next one is fluid, and this one's actually it can apply to just about any position really, and it's kind of self-explanatory. How smooth of a mover are they? Are they fluid with their movements, or are they kind of hitchy with it? Receivers is another one, especially with going through the routes. Do they run fluid routes, or do they have hitches to their steps, stuff like that? Do they waste steps? Do they waste movement? Things like that. It's just, can they do it fluidly, or can they not? So pretty self-explanatory there. It's just how smoothly they move.
Actually, another way to go into this, and there's one over in the general terms that we're going to break down here in just a little bit, is a running back going to the hole, is he fluid, or does he have happy feet? That's another good one. Yeah. How many steps does he take to get into the hole? And when he goes to make his cut, is it 1 foot down and go, or is it a chop, chop, chop and then go? Like there's a lot of different ways. If he's fluid, you're going to see that one cut and go. You're not going to see a multitude of steps. There's not going to be any hesitation. It's just going to happen immediately. You're not going to see any kind of drop off, and he's going to maintain at least a constant motion of speed and then burst. It's not going to be we're going to go at one speed, slow down, wait, and then go. Like there's a lot of different ways to go about being a fluid kind of a player. Now, the next one here is pretty well, again, cut and dry. What does it mean to be a north and south runner or an east and west runner? This is pretty well cut and dry. North and south, you're getting vertically, like straight up and down. If you're east and west, you're running horizontally sideline to sideline. That's not a good thing if you're a running back. You want to be a north and south runner. You don't want to extend plays to the outside. You don't want to continue moving laterally, because the more you move laterally, the more time you let the defenders come to take you down in the backfield. If you move east and west first, you have to be able to then click and close and get north and south. There's another one that you can use, click and close. But you have to be able to put your foot down and get north and south. If you're an east and west runner, you're probably not going to last very long in the NFL. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, definitely. And there's not much more to add about this. Basically, what you want to be is you want to be a little bit east and west at first. And when you find that hole, especially in the zone running scheme that the Broncos used last year, that Mike Shanahan made so popular and everything like that, is you're running east and west, which is sideline to sideline, plant, and then go north and south. That's what you want. That's what Philip Lindsay is. That's what he does so well. And trying to think of what his name was. There was a running back that the Broncos had not too long ago that was very east and west. He would often, what it means is that you're too patient is you don't have this urgency to get upfield and pick up yards, and it leads to a lot of tackles for losses or very minimal gains. That's why you want to be north-south instead of east-west, is you want to get upfield, you want to get up those yards quickly. Because as Lance said, the more time you take is more time that the defense has to get into position to bring you down, and the more pressure that you are putting on your blockers to hold up and sustain. So you want to be more north-south than east-west.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, it helps a lot, especially in the zone scheme. If you're running a power scheme where you need to hit the hole between guard and tackle, that is your hole. You need to hit that now. There is no waiting around. You don't get to be an east and west runner. You need to be a north and south runner. Put your foot in the ground and run. Like, put your head down and go and blast through that hole. If you're running a zone scheme, especially the Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, the stretch zones and stuff like that, being east and west, being patient, and this is also being a fluid runner as well. Understanding that you need to get east and west, put your foot in the ground and then go. Don't hesitate and don't wait for that to open up. You need to have a little bit of awareness and a little bit of good running back vision. That's another big thing, is having good vision, identifying your holes, identifying where your blockers are going to go, where the defenders are coming from. And if you don't have that awareness and you don't have the ability to get north and south, you're going to waste a whole lot of plays. I think one that you were kind of talking about, Tatum Bell was that way a lot, where he would get east and west instead of getting north and south. When he did get north and south, it was in a hurry, though. He had an elite quick step burst, and he also had an extra gear as well.
I was thinking of Ronnie Hillman.
Ronnie Hillman was a good one too. Yep.
But we got to move along here. We're already halfway through this, and we still have all these other positions to go. So really quickly, just going through this. HWS, height, weight, speed with receivers. Demaryius Thomas, he was a height, weight, speed receiver. Means he's tall, he's got good weight to him, and he's got good speed. Pretty self-explanatory with that one. And then the next one is focus drops. This just means that when the ball is coming, you're losing focus on making the catch because either A, you hear movement coming up behind you, or you just have that sixth sense of this movement coming up of you getting hit. So you lose focus, or you even just start looking to what can you do after the catch. You're not focusing on making the catch. You're dropping your focus. You're going to the next thing. High pointing is just being able to get the ball at its highest point. This is what Courtland Sutton does. This is what makes him so great. Those 50-50 balls, those are high pointing balls. Those are balls that you're jumping up, getting at the highest point. Again, pretty self-explanatory.
Hold on, I want to stop you really fast here, because that entire spiel right there, height, weight, speed, focus drops, and high pointing the football, that is Courtland Sutton to a T. We're talking 6'3", 215, runs pretty well. He runs, a 4.42, so he's got a height, weight, speed aspect to him, some athleticism. He has a lot of focus drop issues, but he's one of the best high point catchers in the NFL right now. Like, seriously, he also has body control, great ball skills. Like, there's a lot of different aspects, but that right there, just those three for wide receiver, if you wanted to pinpoint an example for every one of those things, Courtland Sutton is it.
I mean, it worked for Demaryius Thomas too, really.
It did work for Demaryius Thomas too, actually. I mean, he had a lot of focus drops. The game in the snow, Brock Osweiler, C.J. Anderson going off the left end to win the game there. That game, Demaryius Thomas had probably one of his worst games as a pro. He dropped like 4 balls in that single game alone. Just focus drops. His first game playing in the snow, but still, I mean, he did have the focus drops, but the height, weight, speed, the ability to take a simple bubble screen and take it 70 yards to the house, 4.38 speed. He was 6'3", 225, something like that. They called him Megatron Jr. when he was coming out in the draft. And Megatron was 6'5", 235 and ran a 4.39. Like, huge guy, amazing athleticism. But the one thing that separates these guys from Courtland Sutton is a deep threat that can also high point the football. It's not 50-50 balls. They're 70-30 balls when it comes to Courtland Sutton. So go ahead.
So Peterson Creative came in before we get to the offensive line with $20 donation. Thank you, Peterson Creative. I like the breakdowns, fellas. Change jobs. Don't get to catch you live often anymore. Congrats, Lance, on the new addition to the fam. At Bleeds Orange and Blue on the Twitter machine. Are you the one who does the thing, who works with bees? Because there's somebody that I follow that works with bees quite a bit, and I'm trying to think if it's you or not. But man, I absolutely love that stuff about the bees. I love bees. I don't like when they sting me, but I love bees and everything, all the good that they do for the world and everything like that. So if that is you, man, that's awesome. Keep it up. I love seeing that stuff. Like, it's one of those things, one of those few things that's non-football that I actually love to see on my timeline.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's who it is. I follow Bleeds Orange Blue, but it is.
He came in and said, that's him.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
man, keep it up. Like, I absolutely love that stuff.
I haven't been on the Twitter machine here in actually quite a while, honestly. I need to get back into that. But again, Bleeds Orange and Blue, appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate that a lot.
And then
all right.
Brian Greenfield came in with a $5 donation. Didn't say anything, but Brian, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the donation. Just thank you. We appreciate it.
Just showing some love. We appreciate you for joining us tonight, man. Now, all right, to get to the offensive line, because this is where some stuff actually gets a little bit interesting with some of the verbiage that you can get here with how offensive linemen play. The very first one, playing in a phone booth. Now, everybody, if you are 25 or older, understands what a phone booth is. Little glass box. It's like 3 feet wide by 3 feet wide, tiny little glass box. And
the whole Superman thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Superman changed in a phone booth. What does a player play like inside a phone booth? Is he a bully? Does he get overpowered? How does he hold himself up? What does his hands look like? Is he overly strong? Is he going to be able to maul you down or get run over? This actually goes into the defensive line as well. If you're bad in a phone booth, especially in the running game, you're going to be a pretty bad player in the NFL.
So typically there's another word that we often hear for people who are for offensive linemen, and you see it more often with interior offensive linemen. Just because there is so limited space for them to work because they have a guy on to their left and they have a guy to their right. Almost always. Actually always. Doesn't really matter. You typically hear it with them is phone booth. Another word that I often hear this is, are they a mauler in the running game? Because these are guys who they can handle their one-on-ones. Ron Leary, he didn't really fit with the scheme that the Broncos ran because this was what he was. He worked so well on a phone booth. Will Hernandez, that so many Bronco fans wanted a couple of years ago, who went to the New York Giants, he is a phone booth mauler. And then Nathaniel Muti, he's another one who he kind of fits this category of a phone booth mauler. He's a guy that may not be the best mover, not a guy that you want pulling a lot, but just let him work on the inside. He'll open up a lane, and you'll be able to get through it and go. Now, this is my favorite one, and it's just because the way that you have to put it is just so weird, but it's the offensive tackle camera butt. Now, this is one that I can't remember who it was. I think it may have been John Gruden. He really popularized this one. Is the quarterback is the star of the show, obviously. So you want to keep the cameras on the star of the show. And in this case, your offensive tackle's butts are the camera. You want to keep your butt to the quarterback. That's what offensive tackle camera butt means. Is their butt is just staying on them, because if their butt gets off the quarterback, that typically ends in a sack. Keep the camera on the quarterback, you're good to go. Take the camera off the quarterback, you're not good to go.
Yep. Another way to talk about offensive lineman butts is the bubble butt. Mike Mayock is another one here. If you have, he was the one that really counted that.
A little bit different.
Yeah, but that's all. That translates to more power through through your base. If you have bubble butt, you have more power through your anchor and stuff like that. You can actually drive through in the running game. Typically, it doesn't actually align with guys. This is our next one here: dancing bears. If you have bubble butt, you're probably not a dancing bear, because you're probably also a little bit heavy footed. You're not going to be able to move around quickly. Dancing bears, especially the offensive tackle here, you're talking about highly athletic guys. Ryan Clady was a dancing bear. Lane Johnson is a great example of a dancing bear over in Philadelphia. Trent Williams is a dancing bear. They move very fluidly. They move backwards very fluidly. They move side to side very fluidly. They're big guys, big bears, but they have nimble feet. They're moving around very easily. Their kick slides are great. They can also switch their hips and move back to the inside if they need to on a stunt. They can break around to the outside and take the edge off the arc and push them to the outside. Like, there's a lot of different ways to be a dancing bear. If you have bubble butt, you're typically a little bit more heavy footed. You can still play as a dancing bear, but you're a little bit more heavy footed just because your base is so much stronger, and you're not going to be a guy that wants to move around so much. You're going to win with more power than finesse.
Tune into Dove Valley Deep Diver, as they said. You'll hear a lot of good football stuff. Here we are talking about butts. Anyways, on the dancing bear thing, yeah, it's exactly that. It's guys who they're big, 300, 315 pound dudes. I mean, just big. That's the whole bear style. They have got plenty of power, and they move so nimbly. Light feet, can do a lot. Ronnie Stanley, he's another one with the Baltimore Ravens who just fits that. He's got that bubble butt too, and he can work in a phone booth if needed. If the tight end's out there, he's just such a good player, and he can he's a good reference for a lot of these when we come onto this. Now, getting put on skates, this is the Elijah Wilkinson special here.
Yes, it is.
And basically what this means is that you suck at getting leverage on your defensive lineman or your pass rusher that you're dealing with, and they're getting underneath you, they're getting up, they're putting you basically onto your heels, driving you back, looking like you're skating backwards. And that's what that is just you're put on skates. It means you're moving backwards, you're getting to the quarterback. And a lot of times when you're put on skates, you either give up a sack, give up a quarterback hit, or if it's in the run, you're giving up a tackle for a loss. It's not something that you want at all. This is, again, the Elijah Wilkinson special, and I'm so thankful that he's going to be our right tackle for this year again. Like, I don't get why they keep trying him out at tackle. Makes no sense to me, but that's a whole different conversation to have.
Eric, you and I actually share a brain on this one, and it was one of the big things that I wanted with the Broncos to do, and I understand. I mean, they signed Juwan James prior to drafting Dalton Risner, but now with James out, moving Dalton Risner back to his natural right tackle position, he's got the length to be able to do so. Yeah. He gave up 0 sacks in college at Kansas State over his last 2 years, 3-year starter. He fits perfectly what Pat Shurmur's going to want to do on the edge there. He's nimble enough. He's got good kick slides, got good hand placement, again, good length. I would really rather see the Broncos move Risner there. If they're not going to go out and get a free agent tackle, which I still think they need to do anyways, but if they're not going to, at least put Risner out there first and play Elijah Wilkinson back inside. If you have to flip Graham Glasgow over to the left side to play next to Garrett Bowles, you got to do that. But moving Elijah Wilkinson I know I didn't mean to. It was an accident.
What? I was going to say, he's like, you don't even need to move Graham Glasgow. Put Elijah Wilkinson at guard where he's has his natural ability at.
That's what I was saying. If you want to kick him into the right guard and move Graham Glasgow over to the left guard because he can play left guard.
Just put him at left guard.
It really wouldn't.
Like, just put him at left guard. I mean, it's still a little bit moving pieces and everything. But I mean, if you don't want to do that, then go get Riley Reif. And the more I think about this and everything, like, the more I'm okay with it. Now Riley Reif, he's kind of struggled the last 2 years. I mean. In 2018, he gave up 42 pressures in playing in 13 games. Only thing he's basically a worse version of Garrett Bowles playing left tackle, but he was better at right tackle. Maybe going back there can be good. It's going to be an issue of where exactly they want to what exactly they want to give up for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm for that. But yeah, just getting off topic for a little bit, like just. After Elijah Wilkinson last year, he was the worst offensive tackle in the NFL last year.
Yeah, he really was.
You want to put him back there? Like, really? This is why it was so mind-boggling to me, why the Broncos didn't do anything with offensive tackle. I heard multiple conversations that the Broncos were not expecting Juwan James. This was before everything with what's going on and everything, and the opt-outs and everything. They were not expecting Juwan James to play a full season this year. Like, they were hoping they'd be able to get 10, 12 games out of him. So why didn't they do anything? Like, you're now stuck. You got to use a little bit of that money. You got to go get somebody because you can't roll with who you have. You just can't. Elijah Wilkinson, he's dealing with that foot injury and everything, and he showed he can't handle the position. Quinn Bailey, he might be able to step up, but are you really going to bet on that? Are you going to bet on Jake Rogers, who, yeah, he looked good in his 2 games as a starter last year, but, like, was that enough? And then Calvin Anderson, he's a guy that I think he's a little bit better at guard than tackle, personally. But maybe you trust him there. Hunter Watts, he's a guy who I don't even know anything about because I can't find any tape of Central Arkansas players to even scout him. Like, it's just sorry. Like, this is one thing that just is so mind-boggling to me. It gets me heated. I don't see what they see in Elijah Wilkinson at tackle. I don't see how they can sit there and think that they can't go get somebody or need to go get somebody because they do. They got to go find a right tackle to go step there because also getting Riley Reif, he's under contract for next year. Well, congratulations. You solved a little bit of an issue next year because you can either move Juwan James to left tackle. You can put Reif at tackle if you're not bringing Garrett Bowles back. And then you don't have to worry about paying Garrett Bowles. You already have 2 tackles. You can go draft a tackle at that point, not necessarily in the first round where you have to have somebody on there.
Yep.
And develop them. Like, there's just so many options if you get Riley Reif, whereas right now they have their hands tied behind their back because they don't have anything. And while Drew Lock does better dealing with pressure from the offensive tackles, you can't sit there and leave him dealing with all these issues at the tackle position. Like, it's just, and And Darian P, I wouldn't be perfect for right tackle at all. I may have the weight at 303 pounds. I'm only 6 foot, and I'm not that strong, man.
Well,
anyways,
let's let Erick go off on a diatribe for a minute. Speaking of in the trench, and also the opposite of Elijah Wilkinson, what does it mean to be able to anchor? That means to really sink your hips, hold a spot, anchor up, and then stonewall a guy. And Elijah Wilkinson could not do that.
So another way of putting this is dropping your butt. Getting back to butt here.
Getting back to butts here.
It's basically dropping down, lowering your butt down, and settling down, and basically being in the right position. Proper bend is obviously a must here. You want to be bent a little bit, bent at the knees a little bit, bent at the waist a little bit, holding your spot and being stout there. This is one where you don't want to give up leverage. You don't want to be put on skates. You want to hold your own, drop your anchor, and just basically have the defensive lineman that you're taking on or the pass rusher just running into a wall, consistently running into a wall, sitting there trying to do something against you and not being able to do anything about it. That's what dropping your anchor is. That's what the anchor is basically. And it's something that you actually see with defensive linemen too, is another thing with anchor.
Yep.
When in certain running schemes, the offensive line, in all running schemes, the offensive line is more on the attack. And so you want it's primarily two gapping defensive linemen. And we talked about the gapping stuff a couple weeks ago on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Is when you're two gapping, you want to be able to drop your butt and hold the line and be able to two gap, which means that the offensive line, they're not moving you off the line of scrimmage. So
being an anchor, literally being an anchor. A guy that was a really good example of Stephen Paya was a good one. Mike Purcell is actually a fairly decent anchor as far as a guy that's a Broncos player, that be able to two gap, hold off two offensive linemen at certain times, and to be able to then move around. He can drop his butt, drop his anchor, and continue to stay low and to create some leverage for him to work. Actually, a guy that's a very good anchor dropper is Graham Glasgow in the passing game. He does a very good job with it. It's actually a very cool move to watch. If you guys ever go get a chance to watch Graham Glasgow tape and to watch what he actually does with his feet, when he resets and drops anchor, he actually pulls what's called a hop maneuver. So he'll be engaged with a guy, and you'll actually, when he starts to stonewall just a little bit and everything kind of comes to a close, he'll actually drop his hips and drop his feet backwards 2 times. Hop backwards, reintroduce new leverage underneath his defender, and then drive the opposite way and get that guy, the defender actually, on skates and put him backwards. So he's now driving a guy backwards. It's very cool to watch, a very easy thing to see if you kind of know what you're looking for. You'll see that hop step. Now, to move this forward just a little bit.
Hold on real quick. Brian Greenfield came in and says, when are you guys going to have people on? I actually did the podcast last week with Chad. The week before we had Carl Dumler on, and the week before that we had Luke Polglaze on. So we have guests on pretty often, pretty frequently again. I am talking to Luke about getting him on again here sometime in the next few weeks, maybe sometime next month. And we have a couple other things that we're talking about trying to get happen and everything. And if you're meeting people who are watching like Chad and Zach are doing, we actually don't know. I know there's a couple people that Lance and I have talked about that, how we want to get on here and everything like that. We just got to run it through with Chad and everything and get that all sorted out and stuff like that. But yeah, we have people on all the time, and we're talking about getting some of you guys on here. But yeah, we have 13 minutes left. Well, 10 minutes really after we say the goodbyes and everything. And we still have all these positions that we have to get through.
You know what, Eric, let's kick out the defensive line conversation there, because we kind of worked a little bit through most. Actually, never mind.
I mean, those are two just really simple things.
Yep. Go ahead.
So pass rush weapons arsenal, it means how many different things can they do? How many weapons do they have to get after the quarterback? Can they do the swim move? Can they do the rip move? All this stuff like that. Can they get under the quarterback, drive them back? Can they put the offensive lineman on skates? It just means all the different ways that they can go and win their pass rush on a one-on-one. And then edge, it's a term you often hear. It's basically 4-3 defensive ends or 3-4 outside linebackers. It's just guys who they play the edge. They're outside pass rushers. That's the best way to put it, is they're the pass rushers. They're the main pass rushers. Von Miller's an edge, Bradley Chubb's an edge, Khalil Mack's an edge, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. These are all edges for it. That just means that no matter what position, they're going to be outside the tackles.
Yeah. Now, this is a fun one here for linebackers, and this was something that I watched a lot when I did my film breakdown of Josie Jewell a few years ago after the Broncos drafted him, to be able to sort through the trash. Now, This is actually kind of a very interesting way of putting this. Really what it means is to scrape. This is another way to put this, to scrape through and identify where you've got blockers coming. You're sorting through the trash and you're looking around. You're trying to find a gap to be able to close in the running game specifically. If you're able to sort through the trash, Josie Jewell was very good at this at Iowa. Actually, my guy Logan Wilson at Wyoming was very good at sorting through the trash, understanding what his
Brandon Marshall made his career, got his money because of it.
Yes, he did. Being able to sort through the trash, scrape through offensive linemen that are coming at him from multiple different angles, and fill a run gap. So the A gap, B gap, or C gap. You have to be able to scrape through offensive linemen and blockers coming at you, get through and make a tackle in the hole. If you can sort through the trash as a linebacker, actually Alexander Johnson does a really good job of this as well. Speaking of a Broncos player, sorting through the trash. It's a really fun term to kind of think about.
Yeah, it just, as you said, it's just being able to sort through. I mean, even the engaged blockers, it's just sorting through everything that's going on for you, finding the running back and getting to the running back. Brandon Marshall, he's a good one who did that. And typically you want guys who, if they can't hold up taking on blocks as a linebacker and holding up blocks and everything like that way, you want them to be good at sorting through the trash, to being able to find squeak through it and snake through all the rubbish and everything like that and get after the quarterback. Next one, ball skills for a defensive back. A lot of people take this to mean just their ability to get interceptions, and that's not really the case either. It's just includes everything of their ability to get interceptions, how good are their hands, but also how are they at attacking the high point? Are they able to break the pass up? Are they able to knock the ball out of the receiver's hands? All this stuff like that. That just is included in ball skills with defensive backs. And it's another one that we can see with wide receivers too. Loose and stiff hips, that's another one we can see for multiple positions. Pretty self-explanatory how fluid of a mover they are. That can go with fluid really too. Guys like little bit bigger defensive backs and receivers, they're not as loose in the hips. Jerry Jeudy is very loose in the hips. Cortland Sutton's a little bit stiffer. KJ Hamler is very loose. It's often depending on the size of a receiver. There's not many big receivers that are naturally loose in their hips. Tight ends, Albert Okwuegbunam, he's a perfect example of stiff hips. This guy can't turn. I mean, a battleship is easier to turn than he is. So that's just what tips is. Loose and stiff hips are. It really shows up in their ability to make their turns and everything. And real quick, I want to cover Tarzan and Jane, and then I'll pass it off to you to cover up the next few.
Well, I want to say something about loose and stiff hips really fast. Outside cornerbacks. If you have stiff hips as an outside cornerback, being able to drop your hips, flip your hips, and turn and run. That's the biggest thing for defensive backs, especially in man coverage. If you're not able to flip your hips around, change the way that you're moving in a fluid manner, and be able to change the direction you're going, you're not going to have a whole lot of success in man coverage. Now, to tie off of that, if you have loose hips and you're still able to put your foot in the ground, and this is one that I wanted to talk about, click and close. What does it mean to click and close? This is a very direct term. You are putting your foot in the ground and changing direction from going like a backwards motion to now forward. And you have to be able to put your foot in the ground, click, and then close on the offensive player in front of you. You want to be able to drive vertically after being able to vertically going forward after you are going vertically moving backwards. And sometimes you're even be able to do that going vertically going backwards and then east and west. So you have to be able to click, put your foot in the ground, and change your direction. If you have stiff hips, you're probably not going to be a very good guy that can click and close and be a good tackler. A guy that's actually very good at this is Devontae Bosby. He showed that ability on the outside as a defender last year, and especially with his target area where he's going to make tackles. It's a very important thing, especially for defensive backs, safeties, and cornerbacks especially.
So, guys, I just want to say this. I saw the conversation about offensive tackle and other options too. If we have time at the end of this before we jump off, I do want to come back to that. And one thing I want to say about what you said, Lance, is with outside corners who have stiff hips, you often see them move to safety.
Yep.
This is Isaac Yadam. He has stiff hips. Click and closing, his ability to flip and turn is a little bit rough there. And that's one big difference between him and Michael Ojemudia. Michael Ojemudia has a lot looser hips. Not the loosest hips, but they are loose enough to get by on the edge outside. And now Tarzan Jane, this is the full phrase is looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. These are big, beefy guys, and a good one is Albert Okwuegbunam here. when it comes to blocking, he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. Means they look the part, but when it comes to doing it, they don't perform how you would think they would. Albert Okwuegbunam, he's got great size, he's got plenty of strength to be a good blocker, but when it comes to it, it's maybe a matter of interest or whatever. He just doesn't look like he's doing the job. It's very rough to watch him trying to block. I've seen a lot of people talk about him having the blocking role for the Broncos this year. That's not going to happen unless he has randomly dramatically trained or gotten better as a blocker. It's not going to happen. But yeah, that's what looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. They look like the part, they can do it, and they just struggle at doing it.
Yeah, a lot of it, you can actually compare this next term to tweeners. Look like Tarzan, plays like Jane. They're not quite as big as you want. So like Fred Warner, I believe out of BYU in the San Francisco 49ers. He's a tweener. He's not quite big enough to play at the linebacker position, but he's also not fast enough to be able to play as like a safety player. He's a tweener. He's in between that, and a lot of times
he's prototypical size for a modern linebacker.
Really? Well, I guess that's
235.
True. Yeah. I always forget that. I don't know. Edge defenders is probably the easier way to go about that. You know, not thick enough to play on the out or to play on the inside, too bulky and not nimble enough to play on the outside. Tweeners, a lot of times you'll see those guys. Well, who was the guy? Had the eccentric name from Penn State this year. He was a tweener, or a typical, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane tweener kind of a player.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name. But tweeners, another way of thinking of tweeners is that they're not quite fit for one position. They're not quite fit for another position. You see this a lot with linebackers and edges. You see this a lot with edges and interior defensive line. Yeah, Yetur Gross-Matos, or Matos, however you say it.
Yeah, that's it.
The guy.
Yep.
But it's just guys who they just kind of don't fit in somewhere for one reason or another. One good tweener on the offensive side of the ball, DeMarcus Walker. He's actually a good example of this. He's not quite big enough that the Broncos want on their defensive line, but he's not light enough or quick enough or athletic enough to be a full-time edge. But one for the offensive side of the ball is Evan Ingram. He's kind of that tight end wide receiver hybrid, that slot tight end, because he's a little bit of a tweener. He's a little bit bigger than your standard receiver, a little bit bulkier, doesn't move as well as you want from your receivers, but he's very athletic, has a great athleticism at a size and everything, so you want to use him at that, but you can't use him in line. So he's a tight end, but he's a little bit of a tweener there. And if you want to cover gym rat, blue collar, all the way up to pieces to the puzzle real quick, because we've got just a few minutes. We got to get through these quick.
Yeah, Jim Rat's pretty well easy. What is the guy? He's a workout warrior. He's a guy that's going to put his nose to the grindstone in the weight room and work his butt off. He's going to go do all the crazy training videos and stuff we're seeing out of like Jerry Jeudy right now, KJ Hamler. That's a gym rat mentality. He's going to work and going to continue to grow his game, continue to get stronger, bigger, faster, is everything that he can do to improve his game. And this actually kind of goes into the blue collar mentality. The blue collar mentality is I'm here to work every single day. Also, this is also known as a lunch pail mentality. I'm here to work. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm just going to go work and let my play do the talking for me. Now,
Derek Wolfe for a large portion of his career.
Yep. Derek Wolfe was a very good blue collar player. There was another
Quentin Nelson.
Yep, Quentin Nelson is a blue collar player, and this is actually Quentin Nelson is another one of these on here, and I'm going to grab this really fast before you go ahead, and we'll skip the natural traits and toolsy. That's pretty well easy. Natural traits is obviously God-given talent. Toolsy, you have a lot of tools, but you got to refine it, and that works into the one that you have.
And the toolsy one it's another way of saying they have all the tools in the lunchbox or tools in the toolbox. They just got to get it put together, or they have all the pieces there. Pieces to the puzzle are there. They just got to have the puzzle put together. Tools are great to have, but it's what they can do with the tools and how the tools can be molded real quick to get pieces of the puzzle out of the way.
Yeah. Now, this last one here, because we talked about happy feet just a little bit, plug and play is pretty well easy. You plug a guy in. Bradley Chubb was a plug and play defender.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter what kind of scheme you have. Bradley Chubb could play. He has prototypical size to play a 4-3 defensive end. He has a little bit big to play a 3-4 outside linebacker, but he's still a plug and play player. It really doesn't matter what kind of scheme you have. You're going to be able to find a place for Bradley Chubb to play in.
I would say what plug and play is, it's depending on the player, it does depend on what scheme you run. But yeah, plug and play, as Lance is saying, is just your ability to come in and start from day one. Guys that you can, it's often referred to as a draft term, just a draft term. Guys that you can go out and draft, and day one they're a starter. That's what it is.
Now, one of my favorite ones, and I actually forgot about this for the longest time. Let me just highlight this one really fast for everybody. Glass eater. What does it mean to be a glass eater? Now, I'm not sure, Eric, if you've ever seen the movie, I think, what is it, Broken Lizard or whatever, the guys that did Super Troopers, the movie Beer Fest. If you've ever seen that movie, guys, if not, go check it out. It's absolutely hilarious. There's a part in this movie where they're playing beer pong, and one of the glasses that they're using shatters. And they're all talking trash to each other. And one of the big guys just grabs a hold of the glass that's shattered, and he puts it in his mouth. And he takes a massive bite out of the glass. And he starts eating it, literally chewing it up. And he says, "What now?" Essentially. And we're talking big, huge, bulky, bruiser kind of a guy. And he just literally eats a piece of glass. That is what Quentin Nelson is. He's a very violent player. A glass eater typically is going to be an offensive lineman, a bully. A Dalton Reisner has that glass eater mentality. He's going to do everything to literally beat you down into pieces, and he's going to take your cup. He's going to eat it right in front of you. Like, the glass eater is so fun to think about.
And then last one here, unless we're missing one, is gunner. This is a special teams turn. This is the year two guys, often on punt coverages. They're the farthest ones outside, and their whole job is to get down to the field and either stop the ball before it gets in the end zone or hit the receiver or whoever's refielding the punt. So basically that. So real quick before we get out of here, is I again saw you guys talking about what options to do at right tackle. Saw a little bit of conversation about Cordy Glenn and Glenn Robinson. Neither one of those guys I would touch. Glenn Robinson has been awful as a tackle. He's another one of those. He's Elijah Wilkinson.
Yep.
He's a guy who's a guard who has been put at tackle for some weird reason and hasn't ever been able to perform at tackle.
Talk about
Cordy Glenn is a guy.
Talk about looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. Greg Robinson, holy cow.
And then Cordy Glenn, he's a guy who he's just been terrible. Like ever since he had those injuries in Buffalo and then got traded and everything, he's just been terrible. He only played in like 5 or 6 games last year and allowed like quite a bit of pressures and everything. Just been terrible. And then with what's the guy's name? Tampa Bay.
DeMar Dotson.
Yeah, DeMar Dotson. He's a guy that Carl, we were talking about this in the private chat with Carl, and Carl was praising him for his pass blocking. But when I went through and watched Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he always made my notes for the wrong reasons, not just as a run blocker, but as a pass blocker. He allowed some of the most. He was like in the bottom 10 for most pressures, or top 10 for most pressures allowed. Donald Penn was terrible this last year as well, and he's definitely on decline. And he's like 39 years old. Maybe 40 now. I don't know. I can't remember his age.
He's 37. I was actually going to bring him up. Would you want to bring in a Donald Penn at 37 years old to be a swing tackle? Because I think that he can play.
Backed up, sure.
But you need depth right now, and that's the biggest thing. If nothing else, you're going to start Elijah Wilkinson, which is probably the worst thing you could do. Start Dalton Reisner, which is what I am fully on board about. I actually wrote an article about this last night. Check it out, milehighhuddle.com, on Dalton Reisner speaking out on potentially playing at the right tackle position. He's ready, by the way. But still, if you need a depth piece, which the Broncos desperately need, Donald Penn played 800 snaps last year for the Washington football team and actually played at least decently for a 37-year-old player. He's going to come in, provide a veteran spark to this team, and at least be capable of playing left and right tackle. Right now, the Broncos don't have anybody like that. Jake Rogers is, 29 years old and never really seen the field. Quinn Bailey's
can't play left tackle.
Exactly. So at least Donald Penn can come in and be a true swing tackle for this team. And that would be the one guy to me. It's either DeMar Dotson, who played left tackle last year. He played right tackle last year. DeMar Dotson would be a good one because I think he can play left tackle. Donald Penn would be a good one there. And if nothing else, see if you can't convince Jared Veldheer to put on another 50 pounds and come out of retirement. Like, the Broncos have to do something here. They really do.
I mean, my thing is go trade for Riley Reef. Like, that's what I would do. Go off of the James Campbell. He had an article about it. They should have signed me when they had the chance.
Yeah. Jason Peters coming in on Facebook saying they should have signed me when they had the chance. LOL. I appreciate that, man. Good stuff.
And the Broncos actually were interested in it, but there was just some other stuff there that wasn't going to let it happen. But yeah, I mean, I'd just go trade Riley Reef. James Campbell, I mean, Juan is promoting the article in the chat here. He had a good article about it. And James Campbell made a comment about a 3rd and a 5th, and that's something that I would do. Ideally, I would only want to give up like a 4th or a 5th, but at this point, the Broncos are desperate, and everybody knows the Broncos are desperate, so you're going to get fleeced a little bit. Yep. Go off from the 3rd and the 5th for that. Let them take that off the books. Then you have the option of cutting him next year, depending on what happens. You have a guy who can be that swing tackle there, getting a veteran presence there. And I mean, he's been bad at left tackle the last couple of years. Maybe he'll do better at right tackle. That's the best option, really. I mean, I'm not for giving up draft picks, but I mean, DeMar Dotson, he's a guy who is terrible in the run game, not that good of a pass blocker. But I do wonder how much of that pass blocking issues was Jameis Winston and Bruce Arians and that offense. Maybe that might be a little bit better of a fit. But Donald Penn, he's a guy that I'd be okay with for depth, but that's it. There's just not that many options. Riley Reef really is just the only option that the Broncos have to go forward for somebody to be a left tackle, either for just this year or even beyond, depending on what they do with Bowles and James and whatever they do at left tackle. So that's what I would be doing. But yeah, if not that, then Dalton Reisner.
I agree.
Not the biggest fan of that, but that is the best thing because you're putting players in positions where they can go and best places to succeed without playing players out of position because Elijah Wilkinson is not a freaking tackle.
No, I'm actually 100% in agreement with you, and I love the idea of Riley Reef. In fact, that was one of the first guys when Juwan James said that he was going to opt out. I was like, let's go trade for Riley Reef. I mean, they just the Minnesota Vikings just drafted Ezra Cleveland. He's going to be their tackle of the future. They need the cap space to move on from Riley Reef to clear up. I think it was like $13 or $15 million in cap space. They take a $4 million dead cap charge, and James Campbell actually broke it all down beautifully. Go check that out at milehighhuddle.com. Why the Broncos need to trade for Riley Reef immediately. But again, as you said, he's under contract for the next 2 years. Juwan James is going to come back next year, regardless of what people want. He's going to be a Bronco next year. And at $19 million in dead cap money, if they cut him next year, like that's the worst way of going about, especially in a year that the salary cap is going to drop as it is. Now you have Riley Reef who can play right or left tackle. You have Juwan James hopefully coming back fully healthy after 2 years off, essentially. And you have at least bookend offensive tackles to play with there. Riley Reef is probably the best option. I'd hate to give up a 3 and a 5. A 4 and a 5 would probably be a little bit better to me, but still.
Yeah, but you're desperate.
You are desperate. You got to do something. We'll see how it's all. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Like I closed my article last night on milehighhuddle.com about Dalton Reisner speaking out. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out over the next few days. Now, guys, we got to get out of here. Unfortunately, we crossed the hour mark about 6 minutes ago. So I'm going to run 7 minutes ago. Excuse me. I'm going to run the gambit here and do the straight up matters of business. You can follow us both on Twitter at Sanderson MHH for me and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in Eric and the EL in Trickel. Also, while you're at it, follow at DVDD_pod to find out what we've got going on for the show. Follow at Mile High Huddle for instant news, breaking news analysis, film breakdowns, opinion articles. Like I've actually got a series coming up here on ranking the AFC West by position. It's going to break down over the next probably 10 or 12 days, breaking down the AFC West by position, doing a position ranking on everything. So check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys are able to do so in a financial position, given everything going on in the world, head on over to huddleuppod.com. Get your merch. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a T-shirt. There's a coffee cup. There's a face mask, hoodies. Again, we've got a new DVDD a new DVDD shirt coming here soon. Hopefully within the next week, it'll be live on there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you guys are not financially able to do so, the 3 easiest things that you can do to support the show is subscribe wherever you are watching, specifically on YouTube, but also on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video and every podcast you guys hear, get your hands on. And if you love it, share it with everybody out there in Broncos country. Like-minded Broncos fans going to love our content. We give you 7 podcasts, 1 every single day of the week. So with that, Eric, any last words?
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear this from you. So if you did say it, apologies. But make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Mile High Huddle YouTube channel.
Yes.
Basically, every article I do comes with a video now, and all the videos do get put up on YouTube. I know most of the chat you guys should be subscribed to YouTube already, joining us pretty consistently and everything like that. So, but if you aren't, make sure you are. Make sure you guys check out these videos. Right now, I think it's like final 5 players now for my player profiles are getting ready to get posted. I might be off with my count a little bit. And then this next stuff up, just tease a little bit, is I have 5 pieces on Drew Lock coming. It's a 5-part series. I have another piece coming up about the 3 main receivers, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton, as well as another very special article, only 8 for me this week. And then down the road, I have my list somewhere around here, but I have a piece about John Elway coming. I have I can't even remember all this stuff. I know I have another piece on the offensive line coming in and talking about that a little bit more specifically. Originally, my plan was to talk about the 5 starters and their weaknesses, but with James out now, it's something that's going to be evolved into something differently. So yeah, guys, just keep an eye out for all that stuff like that. You guys can get the articles through Mile High Huddle and the videos that are up on YouTube as well, though they do get put into the articles as additionally to that. So yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to that. Other than that, nothing. I'll see you guys next week. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. I'm going to be out here. I'm going to go get something to eat and then go play Pokemon Go. What about you, Lance?
You know what? I'm actually going to go upstairs and cuddle my baby boy and hang out. I'm going to enjoy a nice 9-day vacation so I can get a whole bunch of this stuff done. Watch out for any reports coming out at, like I said, at milehighhuddle.com. Go check out all of our written content there. For Erick Trickel, I am Lance Sanderson. Oh, wait.
Real quick, too. Forgot about this. Make sure you guys tune in next week. We said that we would get to the coverages last week, but with Lance having the baby and then just the time and everything like that, didn't have time to get into that. But Lance is going to do, while he's on vacation, he's going to get all the stuff set up for that. For next week's episode, we're going to be talking about the coverages and different coverage schemes. So, guys, make sure you guys are there if you guys love this kind of content. Yeah, absolutely. The coverage schemes is going to be absolutely awesome. I love breaking down some coverages, man. So, anyways, for Erick Trickel, I am Lance Sanderson. You all stay safe and take care. Have a great weekend. And once again, go Broncos. We'll see you guys next Friday. Thanks. Peace.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.